Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjanashlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I feel very honored to be here and have this opportunity to speak about Srila Prabhupada and his greatest contribution, we can say, to the welfare of humanity, which are his books. So the topic is books change lives, and we will speak particularly about how Srila Prabhupada's books have changed the lives of so many people. That is our situation now. We have a little bit of electricity here so we can see each other. If it blacks out, which is I have experienced now in Durban, is quite common, then this will be more or less like this. So that's the situation not just in Durban, it's all over the world, and actually the whole universe is dark by nature unless the sun comes up. Then we are lucky, and at night we may have a full moon, but generally we just have electricity and fire to counteract these things. So the situation when there's no sun, no moon, no electricity, nothing of the sort, then our situation is this. We are in, you can't see practically. There's a slide there. There's darkness. So this is our situation, and it happens also not just externally, but also internally. And when we enter into the womb of a mother, then that is our situation also. We are packed up, and then when we get out, it's not much better. Yes, you may not remember, but this was our situation, completely confused, maybe even in shock. And then there's all these people around us, they are smiling and laughing and going dee 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 dee. So we have to get out of this situation. Then we have to go to school, we learn something, we may be even getting probably our first book, learn something about our surroundings, about the world. Then we go on, elementary school, then we go on into college, more and more knowledge will be provided. Then finally, we probably take some exam and pass it and become successful, go out into the world to have a career. So it is said by one great philosopher that knowledge is power. And that is certainly true. In the material world, even if somebody has knowledge, he has access to education, to a good job, to a career, and as some people think, a fruitful personal life. But the fact is there's much more to life than just having all these material facilities and amenities. There's an essential part that people generally are unaware of. And Srila Prabhupada, he speaks about that in the Bhagavad Gita. He says there are so many departments of knowledge all over the world. In many huge universities, like here we see Oxford, Harvard, Sorbonne in Paris, Heidelberg University, one of the oldest in Europe. And there's so many educational institutions, but unfortunately, no university teaches the science of the spirit soul. And yet the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. So there's an acute lack, an acute need of spiritual knowledge. But unfortunately, in today's society, it's practically non-existent, at least as far as our great universities go. And we think that we are so advanced. So, transcendental knowledge is absolutely essential to make life really successful. Because by the power of spiritual knowledge, not only will we understand our own self, who we are, and who is the Supreme, And we also will understand our relationship with the Lord, and we will learn how to cross over the ocean of material existence and solve the fundamental problems of life: birth, death, old age, and disease. So somebody may say that there's so many books about yoga, spirituality, so what's so special about the publications of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust? What's so special about Srila Prabhupada's books? And Srila Prabhupada, in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, he says the following, that there are so many editions, hundreds of editions of Bhagavad Gita, but nobody has become a devotee. However, since we know Bhagavad Gita as it is has been published, there are so many, hundreds and thousands of devotees all over the world. So what's the reason? What's the difference? The difference is that the author, the character of the author is vital. His purity of character, his spiritual realization. Because it is the author who speaks to the reader. It is said that words of wisdom emanating from the mouth of a self-realized soul, a pure devotee of God, can have a tremendous, life-changing impact on the heart of the listener. So let's think about what happens when we read a book. We actually connect to the author by putting ourselves in the position of a listener. It's like entering into a dialogue, but you don't talk. You just hear. And if we are in a receptive mood, then whatever we receive in information will have a lasting impression and even may transform our thinking, our feeling, and our willing. So Srila Prabhupada, he was very much aware of this. And because in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a very well-known verse, Tatvak Visargo Janataga Viplavo. Viplavo means it's like a revolution will take place in the lives of the people of the world when they just hear Vak Visarga, the creation, the words of transcendental sound, of transcendental literature. Therefore, when before Srila Prabhupada came to the West, he prepared himself. He needed to have books with him. He wouldn't have come to New York without books. And actually now, practically on the day, 50 years ago, on the 13th of August, he boarded Jaladuta with about 600 books in trunks, 200 each of the 3 volumes of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he published these books with great, great effort. If we read the Lilamrita, we see how Srila Prabhupada, he was doing everything from translating or proofreading, trying to get the paper, and finally the printing. And he said that just to give a lecture or just to speak is not sufficient. Words are gone with the wind and people's memories are very short, so they will forget. So therefore he wrote to one of his disciples that the real preaching is selling books. What will lecturing of 3 minutes do? But if somebody reads only 1 page, then his life may be turned. And here in Africa, 40 years ago, in 1975, he was in Nairobi, Srila Prabhupada said, if someone reads only 1 line, he may become perfect. So he wrote, later on, when he was in America, he wrote to one of his disciples about this. He said, my ambition is to spread these books far and wide, all over the world, so that everyone shall read at least 1 of our books, and that will change his life. Here we have somebody who is trying to change his how does this work? If we think about it, what actually produces the change if we read Prabhupada's books, and even sometimes if we read any other book? Not any other book, but there are many books that have changed the lives of people. Political books, philosophical books, psychological books, self-help books, and so many other things. So what's taking place, especially if we speak about transcendental literature? So the secret is sadhu sangha, the association with a pure devotee. These books, Srila Prabhupada's books, they offer sangha directly with Srila Prabhupada. He says anybody who reads a book is hearing. And he actually spoke the books. What we have now, the printed version, is transformed speaking. He is speaking to us. When we read, Srila Prabhupada is speaking to us. And all perfection, as it is said, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra koi, lava matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. All perfection can be achieved even by a moment's association with a pure devotee. Prabhupada said, because my books are recorded and transcribed, they are spoken kirtan. They are recorded chanting. So therefore, so many stories are there about people who have received a book by Srila Prabhupada and their lives actually have changed. So I don't have many stories to tell, but I can very briefly tell my own story. It has been mentioned briefly that actually before I had the fortune of reading Srila Prabhupada's books, I had read books about philosophy and Indian religion and things like that in the late 60s, Siddhartha, and books by Vivekananda. And the result was that I had an impersonal conception of the absolute truth. And when I came in contact with the devotees, they didn't have books yet. There was no books in German. So I received a pamphlet, I went to the Sunday feast, and I said, yeah, that's very nice. I know all about this. I know about yoga, bhakti yoga also. But then it was the end of 71. Sri Ishupanishad was published in German, and it was shipped actually by ISKCON Press at the time from New York. This is the original cover. And when I read the invocation and then the purport of Srila Prabhupada, that actually changed my life. The invocation says that the supreme whole is perfect and complete. And whatever is produced by the complete whole is also complete in itself. And then in the purport, just one sentence was sufficient, that the complete whole is not formless. If he is formless, or if he is less than his creation in any other way, he cannot be complete. That was it. Impersonalism out of the window. And that book changed my life. So therefore, no doubt, Srila Prabhupada's books change lives. And they do it now, they've done it in the past, and they will do it in the future. And as Prabhupada said in one lecture in Vrindavan, if we can understand even one line, one verse, our life becomes sublime. So I can give testimony that this is a fact. It's definitely true. There's no doubt about it. And the only thing I can say, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Transcendental Book Production ki jai, Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, BBT Africa ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you.